Okay, so before we start, I think I mentioned this in December, but January is going to be a little touch and go in terms of when we have shiur, or sorry, whether we have shiur, how when we know that we're going to have shiur or not. I'm going to definitely know shiur next Thursday, and Friday should work for me. I'm going to be in Seattle, but I will check in with everyone, and so just stay tuned with the chat. Okay, so this is a mishnah that I have written an article on a while ago, and I thought about going over the idea that I went over in the article again, but I realized that it's like a very, very involved idea, and I also I think it's better to read. So maybe I'll share that article later on. But so if you've heard me, if you've read my article on this, then like forget it. Okay, all right, so let's start fresh here. Rabbi Eliezer, this is Mishnah 410. Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov Omer, Ha'ose mitzvah achas, konelo praklit echad. Okay, there's some machlokas about how to read this word because it's clearly not a Hebrew word. Praklit, parklit. I don't know. Over avera achas, konelo kategor echad. Teshuva umasim tovim, kitris bifnei hapuranos. Okay, so usually Tamar volunteers to translate, but she's not here right now. So anyone want to try? If not, that's fine because there are a lot of weird words.
I guess I'll.
I'd say don't all try at once, but go ahead. Someone just start. You're gonna make me roll dice?
Okay.
Okay, go ahead, Lauren. Yeah.
Someone who does one mitzvah, he acquires a frachlit, one
Yeah.
frachlit.
Okay. Acquires one frachlit. Okay. I'll just say for some reason I don't know why it's frachlit. I feel like it should be frachlit, but whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then one who goes against one aveira, he acquires is a category or a prosecutor?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Acquires I'm gonna go ahead and use the transliteration and then type it in the parentheses. Categor is a prosecutor. Okay. Yeah.
And then tshuva or repentance and good deeds is a kitris. I'm not sure what that means, before the punishment.
Yeah. Okay. So tshuva and good deeds uh I think the cuff is the cuff of like I think are like anyone know what a tris bifnei hapuranos is? A tris. It's also I don't think it's a Hebrew word. I don't think a shield in front a shield before. Okay, so I also usually translate puranos as punishment's a fine translation. I usually translate as retribution, just because we usually say onish for punishment, and I like to keep my translation separate. So I'm going to say retribution for now, but we're also going to see another translation later on. Okay, for retribution. All right. So based on kategor being prosecutor, you want to give a guess for what a proclate is?
Defend? No.
Yeah.
Defend?
Defender.
Okay.
Yeah, I think defender is good. Yeah, defender. Okay, let's leave it at that for now. Okay, so the one who does a single mitzvah acquires one proclate, and one who commits a single avera acquires a kategor. Okay, yeah. All right. So what are the questions here? Obviously, what is the mushal, right? What is the mushal here? Assuming it is a mushal. Yeah, Ayala.
Specifically, what is a proclit and what is a category?
Yeah,
like in terms of what?
Yeah, what are proclete and kategor in this context, right? In terms of what? Yeah, Alex.
Why use like proclate and category specifically? Like why use like legalistic language?
Yeah. Okay, that's also a good question. Why? I'm just trying to think if I want to put it in terms of the language or if I want to put it in terms of something else. I guess, yeah, I'll say this. Let's say it like this. What is, how about, I'll just say, why is this mushal stated in legalistic terms? And we'll see, by the way, it's not entirely clear. In English, prosecutor and defender like bring to mind legal proceedings. It's not entirely clear that that's where it's supposed to be. But for now, we'll go with that because I think that's the common translation. Yeah, Fega?
So I have two questions. So first,
Sure.
continuing on the word konet. I feel like when people acquire something, it's usually, there's some sort of like desire for it. And here it
Hmm.
doesn't seem like there's no like it almost has positive connotations because you're getting something.
Okay.
Here, there's obviously none of that.
Okay, so what is
I mean, for
implied by kone, acquire, which usually implies or usually has a positive connotation. It has a positive connotation, but here it clearly doesn't. Yeah, go ahead.
And my second question was, I was wondering if there's a specific type of mitzvah or avera that this is talking about. Like, how is it that one that one leads to the next? And if it's maybe, I get that's one question, I guess. Like, how is it like causal?
Okay, yeah. So what is the cause and effect relationship between doing a mitzvah or avera and acquiring a proklete or kategor?
And branching off of that, but is it like which mitzvos and which aveiros does this apply in?
So I'm
to?
actually not going to ask that question, and the reason why is because it seems to be stated in a way to explicitly state any mitzvah. So if you have something that you're seeing that indicates that it's specific mitzvos, then I would ask the question, but it sounds like it's saying any mitzvah, one mitzvah, right? Even one mitzvah, even one avera.
Because I was kind of thinking like it could make sense if it's mitzvahs that are being adam lechavero, because then it's like if you do something nice for your friend, then they're gonna stand up for you. But that doesn't apply with other
Okay, so
mitzvahs.
that we can ask as a question, which is why does this or I guess like maybe we should put this no, this is a good place to put it. So why is this true for every mitzvah? Meaning like, and not just certain kinds of mitzvos. I guess mitzvah and avera. Avera, and not for certain kinds of mitzvos and aveiros. You see the difference in the question between the way you initially asked it and the way that I'm formulating it?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Okay, good. All right, Ayala?
Okay, to add on to my first question, I don't think this is obvious, but I guess what are they defending or prosecuting like against?
Yeah, okay, so
Unless it's retribution because
I'll
at the
break
end
this
of the
down here.
mishnah.
Yeah, so what are proklete and kategor in this context? What is the, I guess, what is the setting? Or like or context. Like is this court proceedings, interpersonal interactions, and then like what is the judgment going on here? Yeah, I'm actually gonna put the legalistic thing here, and then like why this actually, and I'm gonna actually put this over here and why. Yeah. Okay, Alex.
So I have two questions, kind of. One, being when it says that tshuva and good deeds are a shield before retribution. Retribution from whom? And then also, I think there's a like natural intuition that when it says shield before retribution, that you would think it's a shield from the kategor, but could it also be wielded by the proklete? And like, what's the relationship between
Okay, so I'll expand that from whom, the kategor, the proklete, or some other party. Yeah. Yeah, Lauren.
So my question is about the tshuva and masim tovim, and how like I get how tshuva could be a shield, but how is masim tovim a
Okay.
shield?
Okay, so let's go like this. How do teshuva and good deeds function as a shield. Okay. So it's funny that you say that tshuva is the one that makes sense to you, but yours is on good deeds, because to me, the question is the other way. Can you, I guess, elaborate on the one that you find problematic, and I'll elaborate on the one I find problematic?
Yeah, I guess because like in tshuva, you're repairing the cause of the sin, so you're kind of correcting yourself. But whereas Masam Tovim, it kind of seems like let me just do more things, and then that'll help me avoid things. And I guess it's kind of like, well, how is just doing random good deeds going to help you?
Okay, you're just doing extra good deeds. Okay, so how will that help you? Okay, so for me, I'm going to say, on the other hand, I would say tshuva doesn't make sense. Okay, because that doesn't, protect you from punishment. It undoes the cause of punishment. Okay, whereas what I'm saying here, yeah, whereas good deeds can, I guess, like, fortify you against future retribution. So for me, my intuition's the other way, but I think it's a good question regardless. Okay, what else? I feel like there's one more question on the tshuva and good deeds. Well, I guess we didn't ask yet. Oh no, we did ask how does it function as a shield, but there's still one more question here. And then there's also another question I have on the mashal, at least. Maybe there's more, but yeah, Vega.
I'm just the reason I'm a little surprised that it's tshuva ma'asim tovim is because like in Yom Kippur davening we talk about tshuva, tefillah, tzedakah, so I'm kind of
Right.
like, why is I don't know, I
Yeah.
just find their absence a little strange.
Yeah, that is interesting. That is interesting. Yeah. I will I'll ask this as a question of like, why specifically teshuva and good deeds. Well, I shouldn't say specifically. Why teshuva and good deeds? Which are generic, as opposed to a more specific list, like, tshuva, tefillah, tzedakah. Yeah. Yeah, Ayala?
So why are they emphasizing like the 1-to-1 ratio? Like I could see how mitzvos in general could be beneficial and aveiros are like negative, but it sounds like it's specifically like
Okay, I think that's a good question. I'm gonna tack that onto the mashal thing. Why the 1-to-1 ratio? Or why is this being emphasized? I'm not sure if it's a question on the substance of the mashal or the emphasis on the wording of like one mitzvah and one thing. It sounded like you're asking on the emphasis, right?
But also the substance of the mashal.
Okay, yeah. All right. So both of them are questions then. Yeah. Fega?
This might not be a great question, but what type of retribution are we talking about?
Yeah. Did I?
Oh, okay.
That's what I meant when I said what is retribution. So yeah, it's a good question. Yeah, Lauren.
I guess like, is this a new idea? Like kind of because or is it obvious, I guess? Like
You're talking about the second part, right?
because
Because I assume the first part is not obvious.
yeah, I guess
Yeah,
the
okay.
last part is and
Okay, right. Yeah. So
also,
that's
is
good.
there another mishnah that's like this?
Maybe there's a tshuva one. Let me just look up really quickly. I know it's gonna come with a lot of results, but tshuva.
Maybe I'm thinking like if you do one mitzvah, you save a world or something like that. Is that?
Yeah, I mean I would not be surprised if there are other ones, but I just want to look in Pirkei Avos. How many times is tshuva mentioned? 3 times. Let's see here. My internet has been oh no, okay. I don't think that's one you're thinking of, right? Better 1 hour of tshuva and good deeds in this world than the entire life in the world to come. And then there's Yeah, so maybe there's another statement of Chazal. It doesn't look like there's another one in Pirkei Avos that's like this. So what is the
Right.
chiddush?
No, I meant like the beginning, the first half, like if they're doing one mitzvah and having like a certain
Oh,
effect, I
interesting.
think. But
Interesting. Oh yeah, so I'm not associating to any particular one, but it's totally possible. What is the chiddush of the second clause? Okay. My other question, first of all, just a mechanism question on the Chuvin Masim Tovim, is here. I'll put this as a sub question. Additionally, okay, is it teshuva plus good deeds or teshuva or slash and? Yeah, I guess let's say or good deeds. Okay. In other words, do you need both of them or do you just need one of them? All right. And I'm gonna actually put this also here. Do each, I guess, what role do each play in the shielding effect? Okay. Now this other question is I don't exactly know how to ask it. Let me think about it for 1 second here. Yeah, Lauren?
I just have another question. Like, how is this for, I guess, like a chassid?
Oh yeah, right.
Um,
Who is the intended audience? Okay. If um is it for everyone, as it seems, or is it for a chassid in training? And if the latter, why does that person need to know this? Yeah, Sarah?
It kind of reminds me of the idea that like mitzvah goreres mitzvah and avera is that, man, I was thinking maybe that was what she was thinking of before, something
Okay,
like that.
well, I'll ask Lauren first. Lauren, is that what you're thinking of or not?
no, I'm thinking about something that's doing one mitzvah and it could save an entire world. I feel maybe I'm just having a
Are
lot
you
of
thinking
different.
about like the Chazal's mashal about one? Person should always view themselves as half and half because if they do one mitzvah, then it can tilt the balance.
Yeah,
Um,
maybe that. Maybe
yeah,
that's
okay,
what
yeah.
I'm
So the
thinking.
reason why I said when Sarah said the mitzvah guras mitzvah is we're actually going to relearn that mishnah tonight, okay? Because Rabbeinu Bachya says that this is the same idea or is based on the same principle. So that's a nice good call there. All right. My question is like this. Again, I don't know how to ask this. I'm just going to try to ask it the way it's occurring to me right now, which is that I thought that we were rewarded and punished for the mitzvos themselves, okay? But this mushal implies that the mitzvah gets us a defender or a prosecutor, and presumably the results of their defense or prosecution results in reward or punishment, right? Like, how do we reconcile this mushal with a simple understanding of reward and punishment? So, like, let's take the scale thing, right? Like, you do one mitzvah, and I mean, no, it's like this. The normal understanding is you do a mitzvah, and God judges you for that mitzvah, or that mitzvah is weighed itself, and same thing with an avera. Not that the mitzvah gets you an advocate who then talks to God. Like, it's just like a much more complicated thing. So how do we reconcile those things? Okay. So we're gonna approach this in a different way than we usually do. Okay. Usually what we have been doing last a couple months is we've been reading Rashi, reading Rambam, and then reading Rabbeinu Yona. Usually Rashi and Rambam give us something, and then Rabbeinu Yona gives us like a full explanation, and then we work on that. And if we have time, we go to other mafarshim. Okay. What we're gonna do this time is read Rashi, Rambam, Rabbeinu Yona. They're gonna give us something. We're gonna try to work on it a little bit. But the real chiddush to me is coming from Rabbeinu Bachya, who not only comments on this mishnah, but he references us to 2 other of his commentaries. And we're going to try to basically put together an understanding of like reward and punishment on the basis of that, the entire thing. Okay. So it's going to be a bit of a different thing. Is the power out across the street from me? That's weird. There's like no lights. It's strange. Okay. Anyway. Okay, so let's do this here. Okay, and I did manage to translate the first half of this myself without using ChatGPT because I had a little bit more time tonight. But then I had to make recourse. Okay, so Rashi says like this: Praklit echad, melit yosher. Now I know everyone uses the term melit yosher, like not everyone, but like it's used a lot. I actually don't know if melit yosher means an upright intercessor, where yosher is an adjective describing melits, or if it means an intercessor for yosher, for uprightness of the person. So I'm not sure how to translate it. But he says melit yosher. Intercessor is the word I'm using for melits. If you have a better word, then let me know. I actually hold on. This is in the I think this was in a parsha recently, right? I think that might be where the first place where it comes up. Let's just look it up and see what the BDB dictionary says. Because the brothers didn't know that there was a melit in between them. Yeah, in Vehim, so the brothers are talking to Yosef and before he reveals himself. Vehim lo yada'u ki shomea Yosef. They did not know that Yosef heard ki ha-melit benosam. So Nima Novetsky translates it as interpreter. The BDB translates it as interpreter or intermediary, ambassador. Okay. Yeah. So intercessor I think is going to make more sense here for you. You'll see why. V'chein hu omer. Okay, likewise it says. Now this happens to be one of the most complicated psukim in Eov because this, according to the Rambam, is where the central idea of Eov comes from, or one of the central ideas. I'll read the whole pasuk. Imish alav malach melitz mine aleph. If there will be for someone but a single defending angel, okay, or I guess intercessing angel. Is it that a word? Interceding angel, yeah, out of 1,000, and then the rest of the pasuk says to declare a man's uprightness and to him and say redeem him from going. Maybe it's to him with capital H and say redeem him from going down to the grave. I found him atonement. Okay, so that's Eov. All right, so that's Rashi. Okay, so that doesn't give us much. Rambam gives us a little bit more. Praglit hu ha'ish asher yelit tov al adam etzel hashilton v'yalamed zuchus alav. So this is an individual who intercedes for good on behalf of a person before the ruler and advocates for his merit. The kategor hevechzeh. The kategor is the opposite. The asher yavi dibas ish el hashilton. This is someone who brings a. I'm translating it as a bad report. Dibas sometimes means slander, but I think it just means like a bad report to the ruler. Vishtadol abdon, and tries to destroy him. Now, again, I don't know if this is in a court setting because the rulers would judge, or if this is just like, I mean, I guess this is a funny example that comes to my mind, but Esther was a kategor against Haman, right? She informed the king that Haman was trying to kill her, right? And so like that's not a court setting, but maybe it's just like in politics. Okay, so I don't know. That's why I wasn't sure whether defender or prosecutor is better. Okay, fine. And then he says, "Va'amar ki tshuva achrei masim ra'im." Okay, and tshuva after bad deeds, o masim tovim milchatchila, or good deeds initially. Kol echad mishnei matzavim ela monea chul hapuranios v'hapagayim al ha'adam. Each of these two situations prevents. Now I'm translating here. Calamities, okay, because he says pagaim is misfortunes. So I think this is not. I mean, it could be in the sense of punishment, but like bad things, basically bad things and bad occurrences from befalling a person. Okay, so that's the Rambam, and the Rabbeinu Yona doesn't help us much this time. Okay, very short Rabbeinu Yona. He says, oh, by the way, there is a slight girsa difference here. Okay, ours. Oh no, there's not. Not here. Hold on. Maybe I saw it in the Rambam. Actually, let's look at the Kaufman manuscript. Yeah, okay. So I don't know if this is going to make a difference, but the Kaufman manuscript says kanalo, he has acquired for him past tense, whereas ours says he acquires for him present tense. Again, I don't know if it makes a difference. Rבינו Yona says one who does a single mitzvah acquires for himself one proclate. Zeh hamelit tov al ha'adam l'fnei melech. This refers to one who intercedes for good on behalf of a person before the king. This is someone who intercedes for bad on behalf of a person before the king. Shuva masim tovim are like a shield in front of the pranos. Ki tshuva sha'adam ose al masaf haraim o al masim tovim sha'asam mitchila harhu b'mginin alav kitris lifnei pranos. Yeah. Okay. So I think they're all saying the same thing. I don't really think it's that much different. Okay. So anyone at this point have any ideas? You know, I didn't do this. Let me copy and paste the mishnah into the chat and then the questions. There's the mishnah. And we're not going to get all these in one shot. So let me actually just go like this. Questions and problems. And then let's see if we can get all these. 3 and 4 and 5 and 6. Oops, sorry. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, and why is this not going? Oh, because I'm over. Okay, hold on. This is a bit frustrating. There's that, and then 7, and then 8. See if this fits. 8, 9, and 10. Okay, yeah, Lauren.
It's not like fully worked out, but I guess because of the E of pasuk, I'm wondering if like the whole mishnah is about like how you get to be under God's hashgacha, like hashgacha pratis. So if you do a mitzvah, then that serves like as the intercessor that leads you to be undering that hashgacha pratis, and then I guess the aveiro will take you away from doing that, be under his hashgacha.
Okay, that's good. Yeah. I only reason I'm hesitating is because I find that pasuk in Iyov so confusing. But I see how you can get it from Iyov because it's talking about saving a person from like death or whatever. Yeah. So now my question on that would be, I guess now two things. I see. I think the problem with not the problem, the difficulty with that is then what's the difference between tshuva and good deeds protecting you from punishment, which definitely sounds like a hashgacha idea, and like mitzvos and aveiros creating advocates that like argue on behalf of you. Like I feel like this is the clue here. I'm just gonna put this as a clue. Okay. The clue is usually we think of mitzvos and aveiros as like, I guess, having their own effects. Okay, here they're being personified as beings who argue, I guess, who like who make a case about you before a judge, right? So I feel like this does not like eliminate your idea, but I feel like if you're going to say it's hashgacha, you have to figure out how, like, why is that the center of the mashal? Like that it is arguing in front of you about you in front of a judge.
Yeah, I think I'm just thinking about like Eov coming into this, because if Eov is also a mashal for him being under hashgacha, and like there were malachim arguing in front of Hashem in the beginning, in the first two prakim,
Oh, that's
thinking
interesting.
about the
Oh, I didn't think about
satan.
that.
So I'm kind of thinking about, it's like your mitzvos and aveiros kind of serve as, kategor and sanigor before Hashem in terms of deciding what hashgacha level you are on. And the tshuva and masim tovim probably help save you if you're under hashgacha pratis and then you're going to get punished. Those things can help remove it. I don't know.
Yeah. Okay. So the mitzvos and aveiros build a case about how deserving you are of hashgacha, how deserving a case before God about how deserving you are of hashgacha, much like the angels were debating about Eov's merits in the first 2 chapters of Eov. Yeah. Okay, I hear what you're saying. Yeah, that sounds like a fruitful approach. Yeah, Alex?
For that possibility, would it be saying that teshuva and masim tovim would be like evidence in that debate and case?
So that's actually a question which we didn't ask, which is to what extent is the first clause connected to the second, right? Is the second part of the mashal? And for instance, the teshuva and maasim ma'asim tovim are part of the case? That's a good question. Yeah, not sure. Yeah, Sarah?
I think this was, and I don't know if this really fits, but like when you were like first talking about it, the thing that came to mind is like this makes sense when we think about like perfecting ourselves or like our own path of like growth. So like to me, like it related, it's not specifically external though, but more of like part of that process, right? Like the more mitzvos we do, like, you know, like more like in terms of like our path to perfection type of thing. I don't know. Is that clear?
Let me try it and you tell me if it's clear. So the mitzvos and aveiros are like part of our developmental path to perfection. And in that sense, they I guess inform or not inform. They
Like they're like when you're going back to the pasuk, like they're like that is like part of our shield, right? Like those
Yeah.
mitzvos that we've done that like I don't know, it has to do with like who we are, but like in a spiritual sense.
Yeah. Okay. So you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna recant what I said, which is I'm not gonna go back and read the article that I wrote, but I again I didn't reread it before this year. I seem to recall my idea being similar to that. So let's read just the upshot of it, and I'm going to the blog because I have not reformatted this for the Substack. So I'll just show you how long it is. Okay, so boo 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 boo, and then I build up a bunch of premises. And then I'm just going to read the upshot here. Let's just say this here. Okay. Again, I wrote this. When did I write this? I wrote this in June 2012. Okay. So, let's see if I'm just associating to this, if it has anything to do with what Sarah said. Now we're prepared to understand the new paradigm being proposed by the Mishnah. The new framework may be summed up as follows. Mitzvos and aveiros are not only tools for development. Oh, I guess that cancels that. They're not only tools for development. Well, let's see where it goes. But tools for self-knowledge. Okay, how so? Every avera is a valuable source of feedback about who we are. Every avera is the product of the unique and ever-changing amalgam of thoughts, feelings, ideas, values, whims, instincts, urges, desires, fears, fantasies, beliefs, and free will decisions, which constitute who we are. I think that's what I was thinking when you were talking about this. That is what Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov means when he allegorically compares the avera to an accuser who informs upon a person before the king and strives to destroy him. Each and every avera proclaims our imperfections and testifies to our errors before the king. Okay, obviously Hashem does not need anyone to inform him of anything. Rather, the metaphor of for the king means from the standpoint of objective truth. Likewise, every mitzvah we do is an expression of who we are and provides us an opportunity to know ourselves. Of course, this idea is based on the premise that the same mitzvah can be performed on a number of different levels. Okay, I'll read this because it's one of my favorite paragraphs in the Mishnah, in the Moreh Nevuchim 351. We must bear in mind that all such religious acts as reading the Torah, praying, and the performance of the other mitzvahs serve exclusively as the means of causing us to occupy and fill our minds with precepts of God and free it from worldly business. For we are thus, as it were, in communication with God and undisturbed by any other thing. If we, however, pray with the motion of our lips and our face towards the wall, but at the same time think of our business. If we read the Torah with our tongue, whilst our heart is occupied with the building of our house, and we do not think of what we are reading, if we perform the commandments only with our limbs, we are then like those who are engaged in digging ditches in the ground or hewing wood in the forest without reflecting on the nature of those acts or by whom they are commanded, or what is their objective. We must not imagine that in this way we attain the highest perfection. On the contrary, we are like those in reference to whom Scripture says, you are near in their mouth and far from their range. So just to pause here, not to answer, but to address Ayala's question about what's with the 1-for-1 ratio, it's interesting because, just because you have, not all lawyers are created equal, right? Like just because you have the state, the law guarantees you a lawyer, right? That does not mean that a lawyer is going to be as good as someone who you like scout out and hire. So every mitzvah testifies about you, about who you are, but it's depending on how you do the mitzvah, it's not the same testimony, it could say really good things about you or just like, oh, he did a mindless mitzvah, I just going to conclude with this here. The highly structured nature of halacha allows for a greater opportunity for self-knowledge, since a person will be doing the same mitzvah action time and again, thereby allowing for side-by-side comparisons of different instances of mitzvah performance at different points in one's development. That's the basic idea, though I'm sure it could be developed further. To sum it up, every mitzvah and avera acts like an advocate or an accuser on our behalf. And if we listen to what these intercessors are saying, we can gain a tremendous amount of self-knowledge, which will aid us in teshuvah and our pursuit of human perfection. Okay, that's not a bad idea. But this question does have anything to do with what Sarah said. Yeah, Sarah, any thoughts that came up when I was reading this?
I think I'm still like reading it over. But like I guess my initial thought is like sort of, but not exactly.
Okay, yeah, I also think sort of, not exactly. Yeah.
I also think that in terms of like the world that we live in terms of that sort of being like in nature, it's also possible, that like in society, like people are, at times, like if people think of someone a certain way, then they're going to like look at their actions a certain way. If they think of them a different way, that, like how that also, like if someone is continuously doing good deeds, and maybe also like even in a spiritual sense that like certain things, I don't know, like it's a personal example, but like there was a time when we used to like host yeshiva boys in Long Beach, and now like my oldest is in Muncie, and like that same yeshiva like who we used to host happens to be like, how would I know however many years later that, but it's like, no, you opened your home for me, it was life changing for me at that time, and like of course I'm gonna do whatever I can for your child. Do you know what I mean?
Okay,
Like, so I don't know.
that's a good idea. I'm gonna just note that down here. Okay, I'm gonna do this number 2. Okay, which is that it's possible that the testimony offered by or I guess testimony created by our mitzvos and aveiros, like puts who we are, out there into the world, and that has certain effects that come back to us for good or for bad. Yeah, that's a good idea. Yeah, the only, I guess my question there would be, and this is not a knockout question, but I guess the question is, what does it mean in terms of the, like, at least the way that Rambam and Rabbeinu Yona are putting it, it's testifying about you in front of the king. Now, it's possible Rashi, I think your idea could fit into Rashi, because Rashi doesn't say it's about the king. It just says it's about like, testifying for good about you. So I think that works out better if you're going to say it's other people. Yeah, Ayala?
Okay, so I was going to say, like, similar that it's also talking about perfection, that each mitzvah is like furthering a person's attachment towards truth, and avera is furthering attachment towards falsehood. And in that sense, it's like, because it's like kind of a defender, because it's like, I guess maybe also in terms of Lauren, in terms of like hashgacha, like because you're becoming more attached to truth.
Okay, so each mitzvah strengthens your attachment to truth, and that's how it defends you, and the opposite for avera. So I hear what all of you are saying. My problem still is, I feel like, to me, the thing that's being introduced here is we don't usually personify the results of mitzvos and aveiros, so like we usually just, there's a lot of mashalim for the rewards and punishments that we get, or the effects of the mitzvos and aveiros, and those are typically non-animate. Here, the fact that we're saying if you do a mitzvah, you get someone who defends you to God, to me, that's where the essence of the idea has to lie. Now, I'm saying that that's what appeals to me. Rabbeinu Bachya is not going to say that. Okay, so like you're in good company. Okay, but for me, that's like confession here. I like the Rabbeinu Bachya we're about to do. I like him more for the view of reward and punishment he puts out, not so much for how he interprets the Mishnah. Okay, so like kind of like a joke that wait, let me just think if I could say it, because I have to deliver it well. I don't remember if this is the exact delivery, but I was, I'm not, this is not meant to be any shade at Rashi, but like, I'm not the biggest fan of Rashi and Chumash. Like, I like other Mefarshim, whereas Rabbi Zimmer really liked Rashi and Chumash. And I remember one time he gave like over an idea on Rashi, and like I had an objection about how like like, it's a really nice idea, but like it just does not seem like that's what the Chumash is saying, And he said, the difference between you and me is you learn Rashi on Chumash. I learn Rashi on Chumash. Like almost like Rashi is a standalone thing. So what we're gonna do now, we're gonna transition into the Rabbeinu Bachya portion. I would like you to keep that in mind, which is let's listen to Rabbeinu Bachya, and he's telling us his view of reward and punishment. Okay, let's try to understand that, and then afterwards we'll go back and ask, is it a good interpretation of the Mishnah? Yeah, Alex.
I do kind of have a thought that expands upon Ayala's.
Sure.
In that I think the utility of personifying reward and punishment in that way makes it more real within your internal monologue, wherein the more you kind of engage in aveiros, the more internally you think, oh, I can't come back from that.
Oh, okay, that's a good idea. Okay, that's a good idea. Okay, so the personification of mitzvos and aveiros depicts the effect on your internal monologue. Okay, so for example, when you do a mitzvah, it shapes your image of who you are and what you can become, and that will lead to more good, and the opposite for aveiros. That really reminds me of do I have a copy of it on here? Atomic Habits, chapter 1. See if I'm remembering this quote right. No, okay, so let me just get my copy here. If anyone has read Atomic Habits and knows where I'm thinking of, then feel free to shout it out. I think he says something. Well, I know the whole first chapter. Oh no, it was the second chapter. That's why I'm not finding it. Second chapter is about, it's called How Your Habits Shape Your Identity and Vice Versa. And he says the ultimate form of intrinsic motivation is when a habit becomes part of your identity. It's one thing to say, I'm the type of person who wants this. It is a very different thing. It's very different to say that I'm the type of person who is this. The more pride you have in a particular aspect of your identity, the more motivated you will be to maintain the habits associated with it. And then he says, okay, no, there is a really, oh, I like this. Okay, too many good things in Atomic Habits. He says, in fact, the word identity was originally derived from the Latin words essentitas, which means being, and identidem, which means repeatedly. Your identity is literally your repeated beingness. And here's the thing I was gonna look for. Every action you take. Oh no, let me go back. Hold on. Yeah, each habit is like a suggestion. Hey, maybe this is who I am. If you finish a book, then perhaps you are the type of person who likes reading. If you go to the gym, then perhaps you are the type of person who likes exercise. If you practice playing the guitar, maybe you are the type of person who likes music. If you write what I'm thinking about this morning post every day, maybe you're the type of person who thinks, or who can write. That's what I learned this year. Every action you take is a vote for the type of person you wish to become. No single instance will transform your beliefs, but as the votes build up, so does the evidence of your new identity. That's the line that I was thinking of when Alex was saying the thing. This is one reason why meaningful change does not require radical change. Small habits can make a meaningful difference by providing evidence of a new identity. And if a change is meaningful, it is actually big. That's the paradox of making small improvements. Okay, if I just keep holding this, then I'm going to end up just reading the entire thing out loud here. So I like this idea that Alex is saying, is that when you do a mitzvah, it advocates for what kind of person you are, and then that affects who you can become. It's almost like the imagery of the angel and devil on your shoulder from the cartoons, but not telling you whether you should or shouldn't do this thing that you're considering, but like it's telling you what the implications are of what you did. Like you do the thing and then you get the angel, or you get the devil. So that's the type of idea that I was looking for. Thank you, Alex. This is good. Yeah, Sarah?
Can it relate to like how could this be talking about like how the hashgacha relates to you, like based on your level?
Okay, go ahead. Meaning that the
Um,
identity that you build up from this is what the hashgacha relates to you, as opposed to like the particulars.
like meaning like like the person who's like advocating on your behalf, like when you have the benefits of a hashgacha, it's more like that. And then, if you don't have the benefits of the hashgacha, or if you have, I don't know, some kind of negative hashgacha, like maybe it's related to the hashgacha. I don't know. I have to think about it a little more.
Okay, yeah. I mean, I'm not close to the idea about that this has to do with the hashgacha. But I think my two main problems with it were, one, the personification thing, which if you could build a bridge from what Alex is saying to the hashgacha, then I think that's a strike in favor of that. And then my bigger problem though is the tshuva and good deeds really sounds like that's the hashgacha protecting you, but this first clause sounds like something else to me. Like, again, what Alex says fits that. Okay, let's do Rabbeinu Bachya. Now, I translated the Rabbeinu Bachya on our mishnah, I think, but I had to use ChatGPT for the other part because I ran out of time. Okay, so let's read this here. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and, yeah. All right, Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov says, one who does a single mitzvah acquires for himself one property. The mitzvah, okay, actually, I'm going to read this in Hebrew. Ha-mitzvah atzma hi lo praklit. The mitzvah itself is the praklit. Okay, so just pause here for 1 second, okay? This addresses what my question was on the Mishnah, which was, I thought you get rewarded for the mitzvah itself, okay? Not that the mitzvah generates something which then advocates for you. So he is addressing that. We'll see him elaborate on it, that no. Acquires does not mean that you do the mitzvah, then you get the praklit. No, the doing of the mitzvah is the acquisition of the praklit. So different reading, I think, than the way we were looking at it. Okay, but then he goes on. Ubir praklit melit zuchus. Okay, so praklit is an advocate for merit. Ki mitzvah atma hi ha-melitz vehi ha-sachar. Okay, the mitzvah itself is the advocate and is the reward. All right. Chen kategor hu melitz chova. So too, a kategor is an intercessor for liability. V'ha-kategor hi ha-avera atzma sheholechas imo. The kategor is the avera that itself that accompanies him. V'hu ha'onesh shelo, and it is his punishment. Shemidas hachoshech tachul alav, that the midas hachoshech, literally the measure of darkness, falls upon him. Okay, so there's gonna be a lot of stuff we have to assemble here. Okay, so just try to in your mind get the. Actually, what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna go ahead and just copy and paste each paragraph in the chat as we go. Okay, so you need to scroll back. Okay, because there's gonna be a lot here. Preface here, by the way. I'm gonna ask you this. Anyone know who Rabbeinu Bachya was? What do you know about Rabbeinu Bachya? So first of all, you should be aware that there's two Rabbeinu Bachyas. There's Rabbeinu Bachya ibn Pakuda, who wrote Chovos HaLevavos. He was much earlier. Then there's Bachya ben Asher, 1255 through 1340. And he was a Talmid of the Rashba. Oh, I think they have a chart here. Oh, no, they don't. He's a Talmid of the Rashba, who was a Talmid of the Ramban. So he's part of that chain. Okay. Now, the funny thing, not funny thing, that's the wrong way to say it. The thing about Rabbeinu Bachya is because he's part of that Masorah, so he is a Kabbalist, okay, but he also writes philosophically. So it's very hard for me to tell when he's speaking philosophically and when he's speaking Kabbalistically. So for example, this Midas HaChoshech falls upon him sounds very Kabbalistic, okay? I'm going to choose to read it philosophically because I think it's going to fit. But I'm just telling you a pointer, which is when you're reading him, keep an open mind in terms of going back and forth between Kabbalistic terminology and philosophy. And then when we're reading this, just remember that this is speculation about what this means. Okay. So then he says another statement of Chazal, which is a little perplexing. V'chein darshu Rabbi Zal ha'oseh mitzvah achas mikadamaso umulichaso l'olam haba. If a person does a mitzvah, it precedes him and leads him to olam haba. Shneimar, as it says, v'holach l'fenecha tzidkacha, as it says, your righteousness will walk before you. But over avera, and one who does an avera, malafafato, funny word, umolichaso liyomadin. It will lead him or bind him and lead him to Yom Adin, and then quotes a pasuk which I think is a pun. Yalalafto orchos darkam, or maybe it's not a pun. The paths of the way are entangled to go into nothingness and perish. Okay. Ukvar his kardis epiperik rishon b'mamar and Tignos. I already mentioned this in the first parak in the chapter on Tignos, which we're going to read later on. Okay. Then tshuva and masim tovim are like a shield. So this part I'll read in English. This is, as he said, tshuva in this life serves as a shield against calamities, and good deeds serve as a shield against calamities. The intent is to say that just as a shield protects a person from blows and arrows, so too teshuva and good deeds protect a person from suffering, illnesses, and misfortunes. The explanation of tshuva and good deeds is either tshuva or good deeds, and it's not necessary to have both of them to shield. Rather, even one of them functions as a shield. The explanation is that if a person has good deeds in hand in his life, or someone who has tshuva after bad deeds, then each and every one of them acts as a shield for him. So he's responding to my question about, is it the combined force, or is it each one? And he's saying it's each one. Oh, hold on. I have not been copying and pasting this. Okay, so copy and paste this. Okay, then I'm not going to do the Antignos thing. And then here. Okay, now before we go to Antignos ish Soho, the footnote in the Torah's Chaim edition refers us to the mishnah that Sarah mentioned, okay, which is mitzvah, gereris mitzvah. Okay, so we did this earlier last year, I think. Yeah, I think. Ben Azai Omer, have you rats the mitzvah kala kavachmora uberech min havera? Maybe it was this year. I don't know. Ben Azai says you should run to a light mitzvah like a severe mitzvah, and you should flee from avera. Mitzvah gereris mitzvah, avera gereris avera, because a mitzvah drags along a mitzvah, and an avera drags along an avera. Sheschar mitzvah, because the reward of a mitzvah is a mitzvah, uschar avera, and the reward of an avera is an avera. Now, I don't remember what we said. Let's see what he says. He says like this. Now, this is ChatGPT, I think. Klomar. So I'm going to translate on my own. Mitzvah shehi nearest beinecha kala, a mitzvah that seems to be light in your eyes. Al tisrash l'mimena, don't be lax in it. Ella havi ratz l'kama, you should run to fulfill it. V'chein havi boreach min ha'avera shenearest beinecha kala yisrachak mimena. So too, you should flee from an avera that seems to be light in your eyes, and you should distance yourself from it. Mitzvah gereris mitzvah kolomar. What does it mean that the mitzvah drags along a mitzvah? Al yedei she'ata osik b'mitzvah kala tava l'mitzvah chamura. Through your involvement in a light mitzvah, you will come to a heavy mitzvah. V'dim says shemitzvah achas shetia lecha siba lemitzvos harbe al derech regilus. Okay, so this is what he's saying, that one mitzvah will bring you to another mitzvah by way of habit. Va'avera gereris avera. Oh, I copied this in the wrong place. aveiros gamkein. So too with aveiros. Im avar avera kala. If you do one light avera, harizom vi'aso lide avera chamura, that could bring you to a worse avera. V'sov shegorarto lide averos harbe al derech haragilus, and it's going to bring you to many averos through by way of habit. Ki inyan shedarshu b'per kamad avodah zarah, like it says in avodah zarah. I'll just read this in English. Happy is the man who does not walk in the counsel of the wicked, nor stand in the way of sinners, nor sit in the session of scorners. So the Gemara says, if he does not walk, meaning if he doesn't walk with the wicked, how can he stand in the way of sinners? And if he doesn't stand, how can he sit? And if he doesn't sit, how can he scorn? Rather, it teaches that if he walks, he will eventually stand. If he stands, he will eventually sit. If he sits, he will eventually scorn. And if he scorns, the verse says about him, you alone shall bear it. Nimses lomad she'avera gereris avera al derech haragilus. So you learn from there that one avera leads to another by way of habit. Uba l'lamedcha, and this comes to tell you shehakol tali b'regilus. Maybe I shouldn't have thrown my atomic habits. Everything is dependent on habit. L'fikach, therefore, yesh lecha larutz achar mitzvos livroch min averos. Therefore, you should run after mitzvos and flee from averos. Okay, so I think when we did this, we read the Meiri, and the Meiri had a good example of this, which was that if you get into the habit of stealing, okay, so let's say you start by just saying, okay, I'm just going to steal a little bit, I'll shoplift or whatever, so, or I'll take something from someone without asking them, so it starts like that. Okay, then you start doing more, like, oh, I'll shoplift, like they write it off anyway, that's a Seinfeld reference, I think, I think there's an episode where Kramer was talking about how like they just write it off, and Jeremy's like, "What do you mean they just like?" That doesn't mean that you could just like write it off. Like it's actually like a loss that you're causing. But then I think in the Meiri says the guy who gets ambitious and then breaks into someone's house, so that's a bad act of theft. But let's say he gets caught by the owner and then ends up fighting with him and then killing him. So what happened was if he hadn't done that little avera in the beginning, he wouldn't have had this habit and wouldn't have led him to this far worse avera. And same thing with the mitzvah. I think I've given this analogy before, but like, you decide to like whatever, like I'll decide to, let's say, like, I'm not in the mood to walk to shul for mincha, but I'll go anyway. So I'll walk to shul for mincha, and then when I'm there, I'll get into a conversation with someone who will mention some sugya, and then like, I'll look into that, and then I'll end up giving a shiur on that, and that shiur will end up like having a big impact on me, and then I'll have a big impact on other people. So like one little thing can like lead to like this other stuff. Okay. I'm clearly failing about posting this into the chat. I'm just gonna give up on it. All right. Okay, then he goes on and says, Sheschar mitzvah mitzvah. Okay, now this I have to read the Hebrew. Ba'alamor, this comes to say, Shelo tachshov sheyagilecha hatova toelas hazeh beribuy mitzvos o bebricha min aveiros aderech haregilos bilvad. Don't think that this first idea was it. Don't think that you're just going to get the benefit of mitzvos by doing a lot of them, or by fleeing from a lot of aveiros alone. Ki gam min hashamayim yisayu oscha alehem v'yazminu liadcha lasos b'schar mitzvah achas mitzvah acheres. But you're also going to get heavenly help, that heaven will arrange for you to do one mitzvah as a result, in a reward for doing another mitzvah. O yazminu liadcha b'onesh avera zo avera acheres. Or as a punishment for doing one avera, you'll do another one. V'zehu sheschar mitzvah mitzvah schar avera avera. V'inyan zeh hazmana min hashmayim milvat haregilos. So I actually jumped the gun. I meant to actually deploy those two examples here. Okay, so there's two things. One is the more mitzvos you do, the more internally you'll be driven to do more mitzvos. But then also you will be put into circumstances where you will encounter other mitzvah opportunities, and then same thing for aveiros. Okay, so that is reward of mitzvahs, mitzvah, and reward of an aveiros and avera. Now, again, this is building up towards one more thing, but any questions on this before we go on? Okay, now this is the one that Rabbeinu Bachya himself quoted. Okay, so we got to this one schar mitzvah from the footnote, but yeah, Ayala?
So question on this last paragraph that you read and the example that you gave. The example that you gave sounded like a natural consequence, right?
Yeah, I think that's what it means, min hashmayim yisayuhu. Yeah.
That it'll
It could be
natural?
hashgacha pratis also, but it's through causes outside of yourself is what I'm saying.
Okay.
Yeah.
So do you think there is a difference between the natural consequences that like you will just come to hear an idea because you're around people, or also you're saying through hashgacha pratis?
It could be both. Yeah. Yeah.
And it would like be the same practically, you're saying?
I'm saying that, I mean, I think the person will relate to it in the same way, like, for example, this is a fun thing that what went on here? Oh yeah, there was a couple weeks ago, I wrote an article where I just asked a bunch of questions, and then I was at a meal at the Zimmers, and Jessie Fishbein was there, and I mentioned it, and she said, I'm giving shiur on those questions this Shabbos, and then Moshe Koppel, who was sitting there, also said, I just like worked on those same sukkim and came up with the exact same questions, so like, is that hashgacha? Like, that's the area where hashgacha like operates, but but also the fact that I learn Torah and make friends and have students who learn Torah and go to meals where there's Torah to discuss puts me in a situation where like I'm going to encounter discussions like this. And since we are Klal Yisrael and we learn the same parsha, so like, so I think it doesn't really matter for practical purposes, as you were asking. Okay. So now Antignos ish socho. Okay. Now, okay. So, I didn't translate this. Antignos ish socho kibo mishum natzadik. Hu haya omer. Al tiyu ka'avadim hamashamshin es harav almanas l'chavul pras. Do not be like servants who serve their master with the intention of receiving a prize. Ella, rather, hevu kavanim, be like servants, hamshamshin es harav, who serve the master. Okay, now there's two different girsas here. This one is shelo almanas l'chavul pras, not with the intention to receive a reward. Okay, Ramam says with the intention to not receive a prize. V'hi mor shamayim alechem, and let the fear of heaven be upon you. Now, Rabbeinu Bachya on this is pages long. Okay, I'm only reading from the part where he references the idea that he himself referenced in his commentary on our Mishnah. So he says, so this is ChatGPT, so I'm going to read the translation. V'nir lefarsh ki michlal divrei hachacham antignos nuchal lahavin od emuna ne'amana umala yisera bi'akar tiferes gedulas mitzvos. So, included in the words of Antignos Socho, the Chacham, we can understand a trustworthy principle of faith, of belief, and an additional beneficial aspect of the greatness of mitzvos. Ki ha-mitzvah v'hasachar einan shnei devarim. The mitzvah and the reward are not two separate things, im davar echad, but they are one. V'hapsaim hasholim madua ilu lo huzkar b'torah beferish inyan gan eden l'neshamos. So those idiots who ask, why doesn't it say explicitly in the Torah the concept of Gan Eden for the souls? Which, by the way he's saying Gan Eden for the souls, I think he just means Olam Haba, okay? Because the Torah obviously mentions regular Gan Eden, so Gan Eden for the souls is Olam Haba. So why doesn't the Torah mention a reward for the souls? Yadu zeh, wait, Madu ilu lo huskar b'Torah b'ferish inyan Gan Eden l'neshamos yadu zeh. Okay, ChatGPT translated is, if the Torah did not mention explicitly the concept of Gan Eden for the souls, how would anyone know this? I'm not sure how to punctuate this. Okay, what he was going to say, lo shalu kachav lo tafso alav. Basically, he's saying this is not a good question for the reasons he's going to explain. Okay, I'll post this in the chat, even though the translation is not exact. Okay, so he says like this. So certainly this matter is just like the physical rewards in the Torah. So he says that you could look at a proof from the fact that, chas v'shalom, that the reward for mitzvos is you get rain. Okay, like that's not the reward. Clearly, the rain is to facilitate your ability to get reward in Olam Haba. Okay. V'chein Moshe Rabbeinu b'sof haTorah hizkir ya'adim hagufanim b'pasuk v'yishkon Yisrael betach badad ein Yaakov. So Moshe, at the end of the Torah, mentioned physical promises in the pasuk: Israel shall dwell securely alone, the fountain of Yaakov. Usmach lo miyad, and then right afterwards he says, Ashrecha Yisrael mi chamocha am nosha b'Hashem. He says, who's like you among the nations of people who will be saved by Hashem? Klomar, meaning to say, mi kamocha am ba'amim shi nosha b'Hashem l'chai olam haba. Who is like you, a nation among the nations that will be saved by Hashem for olam haba? V'mofis shalach azeh. The proof of this is Magin Ezraka, is he refers to God as the shield of your help. Klomar, bios lachem ha'hatzlacha tamidis b'olam hazeh, when you have constant success in this world, shehu b'chol eis magin ve'ezer shalachem, which is a shield at all times and helped you. Umidas adin ga'avaschem. What? Umidas adin ga'avaschem. Zeh raya umofis v'simin sha'ata noshayim b'kadosh baruch hu. What does it say? And the attribute of justice being your pride. I don't know what that means. Serves as evidence and proof that you're saved by Hashem. I don't know what that's saying. Okay. All right. But I'm going to go onward here. Okay. I'm not going to paste this in the chat because it's too long. I forget the chat again. All right. Thus, the same reasoning applies to the mitzvos. Okay. The description, the description of mitzvos in the Torah is a sign for a reward for the souls. Now, here's where it gets to stuff that sounds Kabbalistic, but we're going to interpret it philosophically. Mitzvah hi or, because mitzvah is light. Or hahu mishav l'nishama, and that light is what I don't know exactly how to translate this. This says sustains the soul, draws for the soul, I'd say would be better. Of alkain amru, and therefore, I think this is a typo. They said schar mitzvah mitzvah. Klomar ha mitzvah atma hi schar mitzvah. So the mitzvah itself is the reward for the mitzvah. V'lo yisachal ha'inyan hazeh rak mi sheshasa mayim hamarim The only person who will be ignorant of this is someone who has drunk the bitter waters, and has not merited to drink from the rivers of flowing with the honey of Torah and its hidden things. This is what Antignos said to his students. Don't be like servants who serve their master. Don't think that the mitzvah and the reward for doing it are two separate things. Inan ella davar echad. They are only one thing. And the idea is ki hanefesh, that the soul, ba'asosa mitzvah, that when it does a mitzvah, or ha-mitzvah chal aleha, the light of the mitzvah descends upon it. Hu gan eden hashamas, and that itself is the gan eden of the souls. Valzeh ramzuv amru. This is what they were alluding to when they said, ha'osa mitzvah achas mekadmaso malichaso le'olam haba. That when a person who does one mitzvah, it guides him and leads him to olam haba. Shnemar v'halach l'fnecha tzidkacha. Same thing with the aveiros. So that's what he said in our mishnah. When the soul does one avera, then the midah of choshech will befall it. And that itself is the punishment and the afflictions that have no end. And then he quotes the other part of that statement. When you do an avera, then it binds you and takes you to the Yom Hadin. You should know that all the mitzvos are engraved in heaven above. Certainly the chukim. That's why they call it chukim, because they're because they're engraved above. Rather, but all the mitzvos are engraved above. That's what David means when he says, I raise my palms to your mitzvos that I loved. Just like a person, sorry, I'll explain my laughing in a second. The teaches you that if the mitzvahs are engraved above, to the point where a person would need to lift his hands and point heavenward with his 10 fingers, just like he does when he points to stuff. I don't know about you, but when I'm pointing up, I go like this. I don't go like this, but whatever. Okay, since this is the case, lamata harihu misaches b'shirasha lamala shesham chevyon uzo. So therefore, anyone who does a mitzvah below is seized. This says connects to. I think seized is better, by its root above, where the hidden strength resides. V'kasher yipare minachomer or ha mitzvah shehi shirasha. Again, this is very cryptic lashon here. That when he separates from the material world, the light of the mitzvah, which is its root, will hover over him. Yeah, hover over their soul. V'hu ziva, that light is its splendor, its glory, its grandeur, and that is the Gan Eden. It's Gan Eden. And then he ends off by saying this concept is very correct and understandable to the wise, though the wicked will not grasp it. It is elucidated in the words of Antignos. However, his sinful students, Stoic and Baisos, could not comprehend it and stumbled over it. Okay, so let's just summarize here. Okay, so summary of Rabbeinu Bachya's main points. Okay, in Avos 4:11, 4:2, and 1:3. Okay, so point number one is the mitzvah itself is the proklete. Okay, proklete, and is is also the reward. Okay, the avera itself is the kategor, and is also the punishment itself. Okay, and then he says that so this was in, actually let's just summarize it neatly here. So this was the main point in 4:11. Okay, the main point in 4:2 was 4:2 was that mitzvos will habituate you to do other mitzvos. Actually, let's start here. Mitzvah goreris mitzvah means that mitzvos will habituate you to do other mitzvos, and schar mitzvah means that God will arrange for you to do mitzvos as a reward for as a reward for doing mitzvos. Okay, and then the opposite, likewise with aveiros. Okay, and then the upshot of 1.3 is that you shouldn't think that the mitzvah and its reward are two separate things. Rather, the mitzvah is its reward in that it is light that your soul connects to and receives and all that other stuff. Okay, likewise, the aveira and its punishment aren't two separate things. Rather, the aveira is its punishment because doing an aveira causes darkness to descend on your soul. Okay, so the question, as Rabbi Moskowitz will always say, is what the heck is he talking about? Okay, and again, let's forget our understanding of the mishnah. Let's just try to get what does he mean by all this stuff? That the mitzvah is its own reward, and the aveiros is its own reward, and all this light and darkness and connecting to the lights and all that other stuff. What do you say? Yeah, Lauren?
Could it be like in a Mishlaic kind of framework that like the mitzvah itself is good for you, and like doing the mitzvah is gonna lead to like you having a good life?
Okay. Yeah.
And aveiros are also like they're bad for you, and that will lead to like a bad life.
Okay, good. Good. I think that is definitely a part of it, and we're going to see a raya for that in a second. Yeah, Alex?
To me, I kind of immediately think of like the very real phenomenon that like doing good things and engaging in pro-social behaviors like give you a dopamine hit in your brain. Like you get a positive reward internally when you're engaging in good habits and good things overall.
Yeah.
And like in the same way, when you engage in bad habits, you're just kind of self-destructing, and that doesn't feel good.
Okay, that is also true. Yeah. Okay, I think that could also fit into the Mishlaic thing. All right, anyone else before I go? I have one more source to reveal for tonight, and then we'll try to tie it all together. I am going to elaborate, by the way, on what Lauren said, but I just want to have you guys first. Okay, so I actually want to express what Lauren said through one of my favorite malbims ever. Okay, so this is the malbim on Eov 35:8. Okay, which I have read before, but I'm going to read it again inside. I don't think I've read it inside in a while. And if you haven't heard this, then you're in for a treat. Okay, so forget the whole context, but this is in Elihu's answer to Eov, which is in like the true answer for why Eov is suffering. And the Malbim translates this pasuk, "Ish kamocha rishacha uleven adam tikasecha." Your wickedness injures only someone like yourself, and your righteousness is helpful only to another human being. Okay, so question is, what's the havamina? Okay, so the Malbim takes the havamina to mean that your righteousness and wickedness affect God, because that's where he starts off. He says, and I can't remember if this is my translation or if this is the published translation. So I'm going to go ahead and translate it myself. Ish kamocha rishacha, rak haresha shelacha mazik leish kamocha. Only your wickedness injures a person like you. Shaharasha shiase bein adam lachavero mazik el bnei adam. If a Russia does interpersonal evil, he harms other people. And the evil that you do to yourself injures yourself. Same thing with your righteousness. Your righteousness only helps other people, or people, I should say. V'imkain, meaning other people and yourself. V'imkain, and if so, now this is where it looks like a sharp turn here. Tuchal levakish al ze schar me'es Hashem o shiashgiach Hashem bepratus lahanish es harasha. How then can you ask for a reward from Hashem or ask Hashem to intercede to mete out punishment to the Russia. As if your actions benefited or harmed him. Okay, now what does he mean? So he goes on. And here's my favorite mashal. That this could be compared to the fact that a sick person does not ask for a reward from the doctor for heeding his advice and doing everything that he commands to protect his own health. Nor does the doctor punish the patient if he doesn't listen to what he warned him about. Okay, why? Because the reward and punishment are wrapped up, or how did I translate it here? Consequent upon the action itself. Ratzuv means like it immediately follows the action itself. She'im shama yirape mecholio. If you listen to the doctor, you will be healed from your sickness. V'zeh scharo, and that is its reward. Im lo shama, and if he does not listen, I think, I don't know if this is a typo. Ye anesh viamus, he will die. V'zeh onshon, that is his punishment. Lo al yedei harofe, rak al yedei atmo. It's not, the reward and punishment are not meted out through the doctor, but through yourself, but by yourself. Okay. Okay. Now he goes to the mitzvos. V'chein haschar, the reward, hu haderech hatov ba'atmo shekone bezeh shleimus lanafsho. The reward that you get from mitzvos is the good path that you do, that you acquire. The reward for the good path is that you acquire perfection for your soul. And like Alex said, pro-social behavior is if you do good to someone else, you are benefiting the society. That's good for the conduct of the society as a whole. And if you do evil, you are corrupting your soul and your flesh. And if you do evil to others, you're going to suffer from the wickedness of the society. Okay, I'm going to skip to the English here. Did I miss up something here? Whatever, I'm going to read the English. The reason for this is because Hashem created man to be social by nature, and he intended that people of a society should help each other to attain their needs, and that they should have societal regulations and righteous laws to protect the community from all evil. If all the people in the community join together to do goodness and kindness to their fellows and take care not to harm each other in any way and to diligently execute justice to all those who violate these regulations, then everyone will live in peace and prosperity and no societal harm will befall any individual. The same is true for the species as a whole. If it is founded on righteous statutes and laws, then all of its individual members will be protected from every evil and harm, and its members would help each other to attain their needs. But if all of them behave like wolves, and agree to follow the wicked laws which enable oppression and violence, then each member of the society will consequently be subject to wickedness. They will not be safe from the robber and the violent oppressor for even a moment. Their lives will hang in the balance from the threat of their enemies, the perversion of justice, and the threat of murder. They will be like the fish of the sea, where each individual is swallowed alive by its neighbor. By the way, place where we're really seeing this in the last couple of weeks is in Syria. I mean, you had an evil dictatorship for decades, and all this evil is happening, and then it falls apart. But everyone was so corrupted by all the evil that it's just going to be this chaotic mass of like evil for a long time, probably. Okay, now going back here, I'm going to read this in the Hebrew because it's so poetically true. Varshem arach es brias ha'adam. Hashem arranged the creation of man be'inyan in a way shahaschar v'ha'onesh kruchim b'tivo, in a way where reward and punishment are embedded in his nature. Hein b'ha'adam atzmo, whether in the person himself, meaning the individual, hein b'kiyum ha'chevra ha'medinis, or in regards to the preservation of the society. With regard to the individual, if a person follows the path to true happiness with proper ethical conduct and control of his lusts and the like, then he will naturally enjoy a happy physical existence. And if he lives in the opposite manner, he will naturally suffer harm. Okay, then, like Lauren said, Mishlei, he quotes a bunch of Mishlei. For the guzzler and the gorger will be poor, and slumber will clothe you in rags. Okay, is that a punishment? No, it means that if you're addicted to alcohol and drugs and food, then you're going to end up, it's going to affect all your areas of life and your ability to earn a livelihood, and you're going to end up being lazy, and you're going to end up being poor and be clothed in rags. The lust of a lazy person will kill him. Okay, that means that if you are lazy, it's going to impede you from getting your basic needs, and you're going to suffer harm. For anger will annihilate the fool. If you're angry, you'll do things and you'll explode, and that will bring about consequences. And envy causes bones to rot. Okay, if you're envious, you don't need an external punishment. Living a life of envy is constant pain. And sharp wounds purge evil. I don't know what that is. And if an individual indulges in pleasure to excess, he will become seriously ill, for the harlot will kill many a strong man. It's funny, the fact that he quotes that, I wonder if that is a reference to sexually transmitted diseases, because I bet that happened a lot back then, is people who went to harlots, like, I think I remember reading this somewhere that, like, obviously they were unaware of like these diseases, but people associated it with sexual excess, and like correlation they took for causation, meaning people who are involved in sexual excess go to harlots and they get sick, so like it's clearly sexual excess causing the sickness. The same is true of one who sins against his society. The members of his society will come to exact justice, and the zealous will be the first to strike him. And the opposite with the opposite, i.e., the person who treats the members of his society well will receive reciprocal kindness from him. So I think this is, he's using almost the same language as Rabbeinu Bachya, okay? But just to type it out here, is the, to say, I'm going to put this in stronger terms, to say that mitzvos and aveiros, result in an extrinsic reward and punishment, is to say that mitzvos aren't actually good, okay? Aren't actually good, and aveiros aren't actually bad, okay? I think Rabbi Chait gave an analogy of this in his shiur on Ramam in Angelic, that like, if you had like a CEO who was making $1 billion, and like, let's say you're another CEO and you're in a meeting with him and you're about to make a deal, and he says, okay, fine. So, but if I earn this $1 billion, then what are you going to give me in as a reward for that, right? So you'd be like, this guy doesn't understand money. Like if you're a billionaire CEO, the money is the point of it. It's not like you get the money and the money is a means to a reward that you should get. No, the money is the intrinsic good. Obviously, money is not really intrinsically good. But same thing with mitzvos, is if you're saying, yeah, Hashem, well, if I learn Torah and I do mitzvos, so what good are you going to give me? So you're the only person who would ask that is someone who thinks that mitzvos aren't good, such that they want like some extrinsic reward. And similarly, if you say, well, if I speak Lashon Hara, like what's the punishment going to be that I get? The only person who views it that way really does not view, they really view Lashon Hara, the prohibition of Lashon Hara, as like an arbitrary thing, where the Lashon Hara is not really bad. It's bad because of some other reason that God's going to zap you, But no, that's not what we hold about mitzvos, is that, we hold that mitzvos are intrinsically good, okay? I don't know if intrinsically is the best word, but what I mean to say is that, because obviously mitzvos are designed to perfect you. So mitzvos are a means to an end. But like the mitzvos are, I don't know, innately and inherently, I guess mitzvos intrinsically or inherently are built in a manner where the good intrinsically follows. Let's put it that way. Intrinsically follows. And aveiros are built in a manner where the harm intrinsically follows. Okay. So that's the idea of schar mitzvah and schar avera. Okay. And where do we get to that from? Oh, and that's the idea of each mitzvah gets you. Okay, well, let's actually not tie to our thing for a second here. Okay, now the one thing we did not answer is the light. Okay, and the light within the neshama. So let's just go back and read that again. Actually, first of all, any questions on this? Because I think the light thing's gonna be based on this. Okay, so the light thing he said it twice, right? Yeah. Okay, thus the same reasoning applies to mitzvahs. The description of the mitzvahs in the Torah is a sign of the Gan Eden for the souls, because the mitzvah is the light, and the light sustains the soul. Okay, and he also said here, anyone who fulfills mitzvah below connects to its root above, where this hidden strength resides. And when they separate from the material world, the light of the mitzvah, which is its root, will hover over their soul. And this light is its splendor, its majesty, its Gan Eden. Okay. And then where was I thought he had one more thing with the choshech. Oh, yeah. When the soul commits a transgression, the attribute of darkness rests upon it, and this is its punishment and suffering that has no end. And then in our Mishnah, he also said, yeah, that it's a punishment because the Mias HaChoshech will fall upon him. So the question is, what does he mean by the light and the darkness thing? What do you say? Yeah, Sarah?
I feel like it relates to the system of the world, right?
Okay.
Meaning like it's he's not like an individual in a vacuum, like we were saying before about society, and you know what I mean, that like the light represents whether it's good or like more good things will happen, or more positive things, that kind of thing. But it's like inherently going to, like, his life will be enhanced by this process.
Yeah. Okay. So I think you're right, but I guess what is the muscle of the light and the darkness specifically? Like, is it so like, in other words, you could say that it is just a muscle for just the general enhancement of his life and the opposite. But the fact that he keeps on talking about like the Gan Eden for the neshamos, to me, I think it's a clue. So in general, when we talk about light, what is light a muscle for? And darkness.
Like clarity or insight, maybe.
Yeah, knowledge, right, is knowledge of reality, right? And darkness is ignorance, right? So I think the idea, so yeah, so based on that, what would you say? I think actually someone said it earlier. Maybe you said it, Ayala.
Yeah, maybe that this path of mitzvos, of like the intrinsic reward, is also taking you towards knowledge of truth and reality.
Yeah, yeah. So this is how I would say it. Okay, so there are many benefits to doing mitzvos, okay, and many harms to doing aveiros, okay. But the real benefit of mitzvos is the attachment of the soul to knowledge of reality, okay, i.e., the light, okay, and the real real harm of aveiros is removing the soul from its attachment to knowledge of reality and consigning it to darkness. Okay. So really, again, like, let's take like lashon hara, ma'akeh, kashrus. So like all of these mitzvahs do have physical benefits to your physical life and to your psychological life, but ultimately the path of mitzvahs, those are not an end in of themselves, because we're going to die. So like our physicality, our psyche, and our emotions, and the dopamine is not the end all and be all of everything. All of that is designed to like help us in this world, but really to pave the way to living a life where we can be involved in knowledge of reality. And that's the real benefit. And that's what I think he means when he says that when you do a mitzvah below, you're connecting to its root above, or all the mitzvahs are engraved in the heavens, meaning that I don't know exactly what it means by the engraving muscle, but like all the mitzvahs do remove you from being immersed in a world where physicality is the only thing that's real, and you're striving for a life that is seeking knowledge, and that knowledge is the real benefit of the mitzvah. Okay. And removing yourself from that and being in darkness, that's the real onesh. Okay. Oh, Charles. Yeah. Okay, so now the question is, does this help us with our mishnah? And is it just a good Rabbeinu Bachya, or is it also a good explanation for this like proclate and categor mashal? I mean, I think it's a very good idea, but like, what's with the advocate for merit and advocate for liability? And again, what Ayala said earlier of it strengthens your attachment to truth, and that's how it defends you. I feel like there is potential in that idea, but we need the thing with the personification. And look, maybe you can combine this with what Alex said, which is that whenever you do a mitzvah, you are, advocating for yourself, self-advocacy, best kind of advocacy, advocating for yourself to be more attached to truth and less attached to the darkness of ignorance and to physicality. And that is like, again, it's arguing before God, like, what does God consider to be good is knowledge, right? That is for human beings, like that is why he created us, is to be able to get knowledge. So it is making an argument about the type of person who you are becoming and who you are to be able, and that is what you're being based on. And this is also why, like, yes, the hashgacha is related to this, but I think if we were to walk away from here and think that it's about the hashgacha, like that's going to be the second half. Okay, that Tshuva Masim Tovim protects you from stuff. Okay, great, protects you from stuff, but protection is not an end in itself. Protection is so that you can live a life of unimpeded truth seeking. But the real like judgment that God gives you has to do with, are you loyal to the king and attached to his value system of truth seeking or not? And that's really going to be what the mitzvos do for you and what the aveiros take you away from. I, in the last couple minutes, just hit my I'm extremely tired thing, and I think I have to stop now. But I sometimes forget how late this year is for me. My bedtime is now. So it would be really nice if I did a nice whole thing like I always try to do, where I read all the things and see what we got. But I don't think I can do that. So let's just really quickly wrap it up. That I think the idea is I'm going to walk away with are, first of all, the idea I read in my article, which I think I do like, which is that every mitzvah that you do is a vehicle for self-knowledge. Just like someone who's, again, I think it works out better for our defense attorney and prosecutor. The defense attorney is saying who you are as a person, as evidenced by the evidence here, and the prosecutor is doing the opposite. So every mitzvah that you do is telling you who you are, and that's and that is a symbiotic process, a virtuous cycle, or it could be a vicious cycle. Then there's Alex's idea, which is that it affects your internal monologue, that they're telling you who you can become and who you are and who you're becoming, and that's good as well. And then there's this Rabbeinu Bachya idea, which may or may not fit into the Mishnah, but that the mitzvos are their own reward and the aveiros are their own reward, especially in the light that they bring or the darkness they bring. Oh, we were a couple hours late. This would have been a good Hanukkah shiur, right? But yeah, that's the and again, it's so easy to fall into a childish way of relating to reward and punishment, where like you expect there to be something like a candy bar that you get for doing the mitzvah, but no, only if you are looking for a candy bar for the mitzvah, that's like the CEO who's looking for a candy bar for making $1 billion, is that you don't understand the value of the thing you're doing. And the value of the thing you're doing is you're changing you're actualizing your soul, and getting a bunch of benefits from the mitzvah in Olam Hazeh and dopamine hits, but it's and improving society, but like the main thing is what you're doing for your soul, and that's the real reward of the mitzvah, and the opposite for the avera. Okay, I'm like shutting down now, so I think I'm gonna stop for tonight. Thanks for coming. So next week, no Thursday night shiur. We'll see about Friday. Okay. Well, I'll probably put a vote out at some point. Okay, have a good night. Good
Thank
talk.
you. Good night. Good
Thank
night.
you.
Bye, thanks for coming
Have a
in.
good night.
Thank you. Good night.